Hi, this is Mozz with FightBookMMA.com, and we have with us today veteran cutman Jacob Stitch Duran. For those that are unfamiliar, Stitch is the most recognizable and arguably the most respected name when it comes to cutmen in combat sports. Stitch, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us. How you doing today?
No, I'm doing good, Mom. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, since 2001, you had worked with the UFC, and that all quite abruptly ended when you were let go by the company a few weeks ago. Would you mind running us through the timeline of how that transpired?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing, huh? But yeah, I guess it all started like probably over a year ago when we, the company, were notified that the UFC and Reebok were working on a deal, and that we would have to be wearing Reebok outfits and not and get rid of our sponsors. So, as a matter of fact, today I was going through some paperwork and I saw an email that I had sent to one of the guys that we went to. One of Dana's guys, as they said. Dana said when he says we weren't friends, and that he has guys to do that. So I sent him an email, and this was November of last year, trying to get some particulars done, and but some of the questions were, are we going to get compensated and what have you not, and at that point the answer was no, so we kind of knew that this was going to be happening.
Wow.
And we had, throughout that whole year, we had, tried to make 2 or 3 different attempts to meet with the UFC and see if we could come to some kind of resolution outside of, wearing Reeboks, getting rid of our sponsors and not getting compensated for wearing Reeboks. To me, it didn't seem like much of a program, right? So evidently, it didn't work to our advantage, Maz, and come the McGregor-Mendes fight was, that was, I guess, July 11th. That was the first time that Reebok took into effect officially, and they gave us some old generic jackets that were ugly. And so shortly after that, I did an interview with an outfit, and when they put it out, then I think the fans, they responded according to that. This is a pretty solid outfit or article, and the fans responded to that, and I don't think Dana liked all that negative stuff that was coming at him. So obviously I'm the one that did the interview, so I was the fall guy, and the repercussions for that became like a firestorm. And as one guy said, I think the UFC didn't realize it, but they picked on the wrong guy. But guys like you, yeah, and the fans and the fighters and the trainers, even a lot of the UFC staff, called me and basically made mention that it was wrong. So I just happened to be the fall guy, but now it seems that I'm the guy that's leading the pack for the changes in what happens in the mixed martial arts.
Right. So tell me, for those that are sort of unfamiliar with how this all works, what does the Reebok deal mean for fighters, and how are they being affected?
Well, I mean, that's that all that don't have nothing to do with me, but I'm just on what I've seen is that they can't wear their original sponsors anymore, and the whole fight week they have to be dressed in only Reebok attire that Reebok will supply for them. But as you look at it, they're walking billboards, and come fight time, then obviously as a matter of fact, the UFC has people that go in the dressing rooms and make sure that everybody's in accordance with what the requirements are for wearing Reebok and all that. So they basically have the Reebok all the way.
Gotcha. So if you had to put a figure on it that your best guess was, what do you think mid-tier fighters are losing per fight?
Oh God, I don't know. I was just reading the article from Tim Kennedy, where he was saying he was making so much more.
Right.
But yeah, you know what? I don't know. I mean, I wish I could answer that one. But I tell you what, for me it was a yearly salary for a lot of people, and so in that aspect, I could definitely do that. But I'm sure like Tim Kennedy said, he was making a lot more money on sponsors than he was on what these guys made altogether. So there's a lot of money that was definitely being lost.
Wow.
And is lost by the fighters and even the cutmen.
Wow. How much did it hurt your brand? Now, when you say that it provided salaries for people, did you mean for your brand?
Yeah, just I mean, the sponsorship money that I was getting was, was a pretty solid salary for a lot of people, and definitely helped my my annual salary by all means, So it was a big hit for me, and with the the money that the UFC is paying us, it wouldn't benefit me to continue doing what I was supposed to be doing, and that's working with the UFC under those terms. So, something had to change.
Right, right. All right. Now, some would offer, a varying opinion on the situation in a way. In 2001, the UFC introduced health coverage for all fighters. This means not having to worry about paying for surgeries, MRIs, checkups, etc. This could, mean a lot more money saved by the fighters. You hear stories from back in the day where fighters would hide injuries until fight night so that they could claim they happened in the cage just so they can get treatment. This alleviates a lot of that sort of stress from fighters, and this year they announced extensive in and out of competition drug testing for all fighters. This is serving to make the sport safer for all fighters. Again, cutting down on injuries and time off, which means more opportunities to earn money. Now, would you say to those people, do you think it is something that balances out, or is it still grossly tipped in their favor?
Oh yeah, well, you know what, the UFC, doing that was definitely a tremendous boost for a lot of these guys, because economically, I mean, years ago I produced a documentary called Boxer's Nightmare that deals with all the hardships that fighters go through. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, I sent out some surveys, and a lot of fighters responded, but a majority of these fighters go into a fight injured anyway, and but a majority of these fighters, they can't afford to get medical assistance. So yeah, do they suck it up and do they fight with injuries? Absolutely they do. What the UFC did in at least reducing that stress factor and that economical factor, did it help the fighters? Absolutely it did. But as a business goes, that's, even though these guys are independent contractors, they're still, the horses in the stable, so to speak. And you got to take care of the product that you're trying to sell.
Well,
so in that aspect, it was an ideal investment for the UFC to keep these guys in fighting condition. So but it's a win-win situation for both of them.
Right. But do you think that the money that they would be saving, coupled with the the alleviation of the having to worry about it, do you think that balances out with what they were making as far as sponsorships, or do you think they were making well more, that even if they were to expend some of their money on these medical expenses and whatnot, that they would still be out ahead?
You're talking about the fighters themselves?
Yes.
Yeah, and and what they were making through the sponsors and all that. Listen. At the end of the day, number one, not everybody gets hurt, and number two, if you have a broken hand or if you have a broken rib, trust me, when you go through your medicals coming up to the fight, the doctor's going to find out just squeezing your hand and checking your ribs whether that injury is going to keep you away from a game, right? And that doesn't happen all that often, but when you have strained muscles and stuff like that, then on an economical level, you can pay for those and still have some money left over when you have your sponsors.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, so that.
But that's a good question, and that's that's one that people have never really brought up, but that's something that needs to be addressed, because you were looking at that, the UFC. I mean, if these guys had sponsors and the UFC didn't have a medical program for them, then they would have to pay out of their own pocket, and would they still come out ahead? And then now that the UFC has a program and no sponsors, do they still come out ahead? And I think at the end of the day, they still fall short on economics.
Gotcha. It's an interesting point, I think, to make, to sort of answer some of the arguments that are out there. Now, the other interesting thing is the Teamsters have come out and said that they would like to assist UFC fighters in forming a union. What do you make of that?
Well, that's been a program that's been in the books for years. I mean, like I say, when I was producing Boxer's Nightmare, I mean, it was like 15 years ago, that was being brought up also. I did, 2 weeks ago, I attended the ABC convention in San Diego, which is the Association of Boxing Commissions, and it's all the commissions from the United States, Canada,
Right.
and then the reservations, and there were a group of MMA fighters there that are not so much trying to set up a union, but an association, and I think that's a great idea. I'll let them tell you whenever the time comes.
Okay, fair enough.
But I think if you look at the docket on the ABC convention, you'll see who was there.
Certainly.
And,
okay, thank you.
But I'll let them. But in reality, when they asked me, they called me on Tuesday. The convention was on Wednesday, and they asked me if I would go support them. And as soon as I hung up, I bought me an airline ticket to go to San Diego. I got there at 7:30 in the morning, attended the meeting, and I flew back at 6 o'clock in the afternoon because I thought it was important. Everybody was so supportive of me, Mozz, going through the transition, the fighters and all that, that I think it was important for me to go over there and at least on a physical aspect support them. And it seemed to have worked out because a lot of the commission members were coming up to me and telling me how I did the right thing and what have you not. And, whenever you try to set up a fighters association, which I think is a great idea. I don't know about the union. That's a little bit two different categories, right? But fighters association, I think fighters association would be everybody grouping together and really speaking about one. When you have the union, that's a different story. I mean, we get that into a far discussion, but I was there to support them, and I think that it's going to be a worthwhile venture for them to look at.
Right. No, I think it is a worthwhile question for a lot of the fans also, what the difference really would be between a union and an association and what you see the drawbacks as of the union.
Well, and to be honest with you, I've never worked with any unions. I don't really know the body of a union. So on that aspect, I don't know, but I know I was reading where, the union that is the culinary union here in Las Vegas,
right.
That's been after the station casinos, the partidas for unionizing those. All right, I've understood that because I've seen the demonstrations and what have you not. But now they want to get into supporting the fighters, but then that becomes a thin line of, are you doing it for the sake of the union or are you doing it for the sake of the fighters? That still, I haven't had a chance to address that. And so I don't know, but I think it's apples and oranges when it comes to them. They're more of looking after themselves than they are as the fighters at this point. They're just using the fighters as a pawn. That's my just off the record, or I guess it's on the record, but that'd be my guess. The fighter association is a bunch of fighters getting together. Because see, I'm the honorary president of the International Cutman Association, which is a bunch of cutmen from throughout the world. That if you have any questions, you go to their website or you go to their Facebook and you ask the question and somebody will answer. So it's more of everybody helping each other out without being locked up into any type of union. So,
but do you think
that aspect,
would that still give you the collective bargaining power, though, that I think is what the fighters are searching for? Or do you think that's not as necessary as long as the fighter is, the community of fighters are together?
Well, that's a good question, but there was a representative there from the union that was there and was there to kind of state the fact that the unions are there to support a fighter association. It's kind of like the NFL. The NFL has their player association, and that's basically what they want to set up. Something to go like the major leagues, the baseball players association, and the football players association, and I think the level of this sport has gotten to that point where everybody's trying to compare it to these sports. Well, let's get it organized like these sports, and let's get some kind of association going. So I don't know, but one way or the other, I'm there for change, and I think the change has to happen, and it has to happen to the blue collar guys, which are us.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know if you know how to get from New York, so
I am.
But I grew up in California as a farm worker. I was all my life till I was 18.
Wow.
I was a farm worker working, picking the tomatoes and the peaches and the cotton, and if you ate it, I probably picked it for you, right? So during that era when I was like 11 or 12 years old, Cesar Chavez was our hero, and that's when he did the famous walk from Delano, California to Sacramento. Well, my town happened to be right in the middle of that walk, and my parents were supporters of organizing, better working conditions for the farm workers and all that. So it's kind of like in my blood. And when I've always been a leader, and I've always tried to make the game. I try to make this game as fair for everybody, and that's why I supported the cutman when I wrote this article. So that's always been my nature that was given to me by my parents, and I've seen it, but nothing's ever changed, man. It's just that the whole program has gone from farm workers to mixed martial arts to boxing, and but
Wow.
the game's the same. The characters are different.
Right. It's always the case. Now, yeah, that was going to lead into my next thought was, I think with the visibility that you've garnered, the position that you have, coupled with the enormous amount of respect that all the fighters and everybody in the industry has for you, would you consider a leadership role in starting something like this? I think it would be a perfect storm of different things that are combining, which puts you in a position that I think you could do a lot of good. Is this something you'd consider?
Well, I've thought about that, and the guys that I supported at the ABC convention are leaders amongst themselves, and I think they would be a lot better doing what they want to do than me.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same token, as a matter of fact, I sent a text yesterday that whatever assistance that they will give, I'll give them 150%. I'm at this point right now, Mozz, I'm good as a mouthpiece. On the administration. Yeah, exactly. And on the administrative side of that, I got to build my own program up right now before I build up another one.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think your value as an ambassador would be tremendous.
Yeah, no, that's guaranteed, and I gave them my lifetime commitment. Whatever you guys need, and because I know, my strength falls within my mouthpiece, and
right.
and when it comes to administrative parts and all that, not to say I won't do it, but
Right.
at this point, that's not within my plans right now.
That's not where your value would be.
Well, I have to refocus myself because I have a family first.
Right.
And with everything that's happened, I'm getting all kinds of crazy offers, and so I'm sitting down and evaluating what's going on. But I gotta build my future before I build somebody else's.
So
but I could do it.
Do you think in the end, severing ties with the UFC has sort of opened you up to more financial opportunities, perhaps?
It's already happening now, man. I'm telling you, it's been tremendous, the offers that I'm getting, and I mean I'm booked all the way up to Japan. Well, I'm going to Japan and doing fights on the 29th of December, doing an autograph signing on the 30th, and then doing a big show on the 31st of December. So I'm booked all the way. I just booked another show in Salzburg, Austria, November the 7th, and like I say, I'll be in Newark this weekend working with Marco Huck and so on. So yeah, it has opened that up, and I got to thank Dana for helping me kickstart my new career. Because he spoke so bad about it that everybody supported me.
Right.
But this is what I've wanted to do anyway. Working with the UFC I committed myself to so many events that it would take away from other things that I wanted to do, and I think now I'm doing those things that I wanted to do.
That's excellent. I think everybody will be really, really happy to hear that.
Yeah, like I did the week before last, I did the World Series of Fighting, and not for the economics, more to support Ray Staffel, but also to kind of get the cutmen in line with what we do, educate them. Friday I did the Glory event, the same thing, and next week in fact this Sunday when I come back from Newark on Sunday I'm going to Los Angeles for the University of MMA. It's an amateur show. So I'm going to donate my time, but I'm going to get them, if they're going to have cutmen working these fights like we set up in the UFC, I want to make sure that they're on the right page. And these are the things that I'm doing right now. And so, it's kind of giving back at this point, but also building up my own format.
Excellent. It's wonderful. It is the qualities of a leader, Excellent. So, Stitch, I want to thank you so much for your time, for taking the time to speak with us. And one last question a friend of mine had me ask you. Do you ever get mistaken for Edward James Olmos, ever?
Well, you know what it is, all the time. but September the 25th, he's one of my idols, number one.
Oh, okay.
Him being Mexican, I'm being Mexican, and he came when Anderson Silva fought Chris Weidman. When Anderson got knocked out, Edward James Olmos came with him to support him. And I got to meet him.
Huh.
He wanted to meet me. I wanted to meet him, right? And I turned the corner and I look at him when we start laughing. I say, shit, we do look alike, you know. But adding to that is September the 25th, I am doing a movie with him and Anderson Silva, and it's an independent film. The director is actually going to be fighting in a Bellator card in Los Angeles.
What's his
so
name?
I'm going to be working. Man, don't ask me.
I'll find out. I'll find out. We'll put it up.
I'm working with Edward James Olmos and Anderson Silva in the corner. So,
wow.
you know, I'll be the one with the glasses. Hell, we both wear glasses.
That's
so
that's
we're going to have to see who's who.
Right.
Yeah, so that's, so for me, it's a dream come true. So tell your buddy that it happens all the time.
Excellent.
And, you know, and now I get to do a movie with my idol.
That's awesome. All right, thank you, Stitch, so much for your time. We do appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful day, and good luck on everything. We hope to see more of you involved in helping fighters.
Yes, sir. That's what we're going to do.
Take care, Stitch. Be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right, goodbye.